a little after 5:30, and we are here to reconvene the Personnel Subcommittee to hopefully continue and maybe finalize the strategic goals and objectives. And at this time, Mr. Clerk, if you could call the roll.
Councilor Broderick?
Here.
Councilor Martin?
Here.
Councilor Mendonça?
Here.
3 present.
Thank you. And I know in discussion with the manager that you have gotten quite a bit of feedback from councilors and also maybe some private citizens, and have made some corrections and additions and modifications, and maybe it makes sense if we don't have any questions right now, that maybe you walk us through the updated version, and then we can take it from there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We did, as you know, we presented this to the subcommittee, and it was referred to, or a report was made to the full council a couple of weeks back, and that, of course, followed on some work that we did with the subcommittee back in, I think it was December, in putting in place some goals and objectives that would correspond to what the administration is trying to accomplish here in the city, and clearly what the City Council would like the administration to accomplish in the city over the course of the next 12 to 18 months. We were very pleased with the response that we received at the subcommittee, and we got quite a bit of feedback from the members of the subcommittee and the council, but we also got some good feedback from citizens that were watching, and it was a suggestion of the council that we place this online, which we did, and so we got some good feedback from citizens, and we went in and sort of fine-tuned some areas as well, and worked with some departments on some additional information that is presented in or will be presented in the final document. As I say, the residents have been pleased with it. What we have included now is some target measures and dates to given the resources necessary to move the projects forward. We've updated and clarified quite a bit of the language and the target measures and benchmarks. So, because I know that I believe it was Councilor Mendonça who wanted to know, well, you say you're going to accomplish something, or a certain percentage increases or improvements. So we want to actually have some way of evaluating the progress that's being made. So what I've done tonight is simply we've added or we've put into each one of the goals what we've actually modified within each, and hopefully this will get us to pretty much the final product that then hopefully the council can adopt or accept at the next city council meeting, and then we can move forward to do the reporting to the council on the implementation of these action items over the course of the next, as I say, the next 12 to 18 months. Under goal number 1, best practice government, we've added several items that I think correspond or respond to city council or suggestions. One is a motion, actually there's a report in the packets tonight on a motion by Councilor Dakota and Elliott of expanding access to Lowellians for city jobs, and so we've documented what's in the actually in the report to the council, putting in place a municipal management training program, funding for professional development, and then putting in place an email listserv so that we can, when jobs are posted, an email is sent out to people that subscribe, so that they are aware of the jobs that we have here at City Hall. An interesting note is, as of last week, we already had 135 subscribers, so every time we post a position now, it goes out to those people, and that's growing each week. We add new subscribers to our mail list. We did include also within best practice government a submission of a grant application for feasibility study of a regional health partnership, as we're trying to look at cost savings and ways of stretching our revenues and our resources. We're certainly looking at regionalization, and this is an area that there has been quite a bit of work done on a statewide basis in varying degrees. And some communities have actually merged their health departments across different communities. We're not so much looking at that as much as sharing resources with our regional partners. We've also looking at regionalization of our animal control. Again, this is something that is being worked on already with some area communities, and we wanted to include this as a way that we could, again, stretch some of our resources. We have changed a number of the target dates to get a better idea of the resources that will be available in FY12. That corresponds, as I say, to Councilman Don's concerns that we be clear on what we need in terms of dates to accomplish certain tasks, as well as the measures of how we're doing. Under fiscal policies, we've eliminated a goal pertaining to grant funding for personnel, simply because, let's be realistic, we want to be realistic. It's very likely that we're going to see less funding from the federal government and probably from the state government for a number of the formula-based grants. In particular, the Community Development Block Grant, the word is that we're going to be looking at probably a 7 to 7.5% reduction in our Community Development Block Grant funding next year based on what's happening in Congress. So we've also eliminated the free cash goal. We don't believe that that's really realistic in this climate. But what we've done instead is we've left in the goals that we have pertaining to stabilization fund. We want to build our reserves, and we want to, we already have a maintenance of our excess levy capacity within that. Other than that, I mean, the challenging part of a free cash goal to the public, I think, is that, we want to be able to say that we're making, we're savings, and we have certain goals of, in the private sector, you would look at goals of profitability. We're not a profit-making organization. We work very hard to be conservative in our revenue estimates, and we try to stretch our expenditures so that at the end of the year we haven't spent all of our money and we have actually brought in more money than we had anticipated. But it's difficult to say to the public that we're building into the base of the budget an excess of $1 million, $2 million, $3 million. That's certainly our goal, is that we're going to be able to be realistic in our revenue estimates and stretch those expenditure dollars. And I think that's a sign of good management, that at the end of the fiscal year we have money left over. It shows we're doing our job. But at the same time, to build in, I think, sends a mixed message to the public. Under goal number 4, we've added a number of the projects that we'll be doing in terms of neighborhood business districts, sign and facade improvement program. This is putting some measurement in that will in fact be achieving a certain number of projects with the money that we put into these neighborhoods. This ties in directly with the neighborhood initiative that we've now added on to this goal as well. As you know, this is a program that we put in place a couple of years ago. We've done work in the Centerville neighborhood. This year we're doing it in Lower Highland. We anticipate that we'll be able to move the neighborhood initiative into another neighborhood next fiscal year. That was not picked up on the first version that you received, but it's a program that we're very proud of, and we want to continue on, that we target those neighborhoods in terms of federal monies as well as state and local monies to really make an impact within those neighborhoods. And so we wanted to include that, so that I know that ties in very directly with a number of city councilors' goals or priorities in terms of addressing neighborhood concerns. Goal number 7 that we've made some additions to. Again, this ties in with some inquiries that we received from councilors or comments that we received from councilors. And goal number 7 is sustainability and the environment. And we hadn't tied in any numbers to the recycling rate. We want to actually try to increase our recycling rate to, in this case, we've set a goal of 30 to 35%. And right now it's about 20%. So we're working to put in programs that will build that up to, from the 20% up to the 30 to 35%. And there are a number of ways to do that, certainly educational efforts and programs, some ordinance ordinance changes to eliminate visible recyclables from the solid waste stream. We also think that there's some real opportunities to institute a recycling program in the Lowell Public Schools, and we'll need to put together some efforts to make that happen. There's some real savings that we see there. So we want to add that into that particular goal. And then it was picked up actually, I believe, by the city engineer that we hadn't, one of the major issues coming before every community is new stormwater regulations coming from the EPA. And DEP is, of course, tying in with these as well. And so we want to, that's going to take quite a bit of resources and a focus from our city engineer and our public works department, as well as planning and development. So we want to make sure that we're picking that up. If that's an activity that we're doing, recognizing that it isn't necessarily hasn't been a directed goal, perhaps, that we've talked about in the past, but it is something we're going to have to do. We are going to have to comply with the stormwater regulations, so we should capture that within the goals and objectives and the activities of the city administration. And then finally, in terms of other changes that we've made to the documents that you received, major changes, is in the area of physical infrastructure. And of course, this is an area that we didn't necessarily pick up on in the very first draft of this, going back into the fall, of including many of the physical infrastructure improvements that we want to make in the city, particularly with our capital plan, and it also ties in with a number of priorities that the city councilors have pointed out to us. And so we've added 4 different areas here. One is the bus shelter system that Councilor Murphy brought to our attention. That was a city council motion that was approved and sent on to me for research and eventual implementation. So we want to have that in there as part of an objective within that goal. Tying back to the compliance with the EPA stormwater regulations is some actual actions that need to take place with regards to our physical infrastructure, and that would include the maintenance efforts with our catch basin program, catch basin cleaning and catch basin maintenance, and that would tie in, as I said, with the prior objective within goal number 7 of sustainability, that we actually do more in terms of catch basin cleaning. Councilman Donser brought up the issue, I know, at a recent city council meeting, something that we have been working on. I know Councilor Mercier has brought it forward in the past as well, of getting those unaccepted streets accepted. That's something that we've been doing for the past couple of years, but I know it's been a concern for council members. So let's put that in as a goal, and one that we can measure how we're doing with regards to that. And so we've included that within goal number 8. And then we've revisited Objective C of safe and attractive public places within our physical infrastructure to, again, tie in with our concerns regarding the state and federal grants, recognizing the reality that we're not going to be getting we want these goals to be realistic and our objectives to be realistic in reaching these goals. So in light of the state and federal grant cutbacks, we wanted to be a little bit more conservative in what we can accomplish there. Again, this, there's a lot within this document that you have before you. These are just it's a very aggressive set of goals and objectives that we've put forward. I think it ties in, though, with what the council has spoken of in the past. It certainly ties in with what the administration has been working at for the last 4+ years, and I think it sets a good roadmap for us as we look at the next 12 to 18 months. And we're anxious to get this formalized, and then hopefully includes much of this within the fiscal year 12 budget. for implementation where necessary, where resources are necessary, and then coming back to the council on a regular basis with reports. And we'd be looking at probably the first report you'd see within the budget itself, tie in with many of these goals and objectives, but then the first report of implementation probably happening in the June timeframe at the midway point.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Martin, I know you had a question?
I do. On this number 7, the addition of the stormwater goal, I do have some concerns about that because I've had a number of complaints, frankly, from residents and property owners, particularly in related to, simple things such as repaving a driveway or a small parking lot. And by small, I mean, less than 10 cars. And if this is being mandated by the federal government, maybe we're powerless to do something, but the city's getting the blame for this. And, the stories I've been told, for example, are, things like a parking lot that's been in existence for 50 years or more goes to pull a permit to get repaved. It can't get the permit because they have to now demonstrate that all the stormwater is going to be retained on the site, even though there might be a catch basin right there at the curb. So I had the one particular instance, the person did that, created a detention area to hold the water, and then went to get the permit, was told they had to do a perk test to hold stormwater. That delays the issuance of the permit. Contractors have to be rescheduled, and that's just one instance. I've also heard, similar story, redevelopment in a mill yard where historically water discharges to the canal now potentially has to be retained somewhere on site, even though the whole site might be occupied by buildings or impervious parking material that's precious, parking in those developments. So I think this is potentially going to really handicap our ability to get redevelopment and property improvement done. And, we see it now with the snow. I mean, at my time on the Conservation Commission, the environmentally sensitive thing to do was to discharge stormwater direct to the river, direct to streams, because if you put it in the sewer system, it overwhelms the treatment plant. And until we achieve, the goal of total separation, or world peace, I don't know whichever one may come first, but, we're going to have that problem. To me, the environmentally responsible thing to do might be to discharge some of the stormwater direct to some of these streams and canals. And so I don't know. So I've gotten a handful of complaints about this already, and now if we're going to try to enforce this more, I mean, there's got to be an education piece to this. Contractors need to know about this, and we need to, tell EPA to get realistic about what they're trying to do, with redevelopment in urban centers.
Well, I do think much of this is dictated by the new stormwater regulations, and it is something that's getting quite a bit of attention across the country as communities grapple with this. I do think that it may be advisable to get a report to the council, perhaps having a meeting with the environmental subcommittee. To talk about those stormwater regulations and how we comply with those, so that we can make that clear, because I do think and I do think that education is a key part of that. There's no doubt about that.
People are taken by surprise. It doesn't come up till they go to pull a driveway or a paving permit,
Right.
And the city's getting the blame for this, and. So we need to do something about this, because I've already got a number of complaints, and it's only going to continue.
Thank you. Councilman Johnson.
Yes. Well, I'm pleased with the progress that's been made, and I'm actually anxious now to move from the development phase of these goals and objectives to the action or implementation stage. So I'm glad that it's pretty much taken form, and that hopefully within a week or so, we'll have a final version to bring before the full council for the vote.
Good, thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Milanazzo?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I too am pleased with the update that we received this evening from the city manager. And again, I was under the impression, and maybe I'm wrong, Councilman Johnson, but I thought that the subcommittee was going to recommend to the full council this evening that we approve the goals and objectives. But again, I'll leave that to the subcommittee. But my question has to do with tying this document now back into the city manager's contract, and to make sure that the goals that we have here, that the personnel subcommittee and obviously the full council is comfortable that they're measurable, so that when we get to the point where we're doing the annual evaluation, that we can harken back to this document and say what has been accomplished, and then rate the manager on those objectives. So I just want to bring that forward and to tie this back to the contract to make sure that the personnel subcommittee and the members of the council are comfortable that that's the reason we're bringing all this forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Johnson?
Yeah. To that point, since we don't have an actual document before us, I would certainly, as a member of the subcommittee, motion that it be brought before the full council, but that we get that document maybe in next week's packet, so we have time to review it before we vote on it. That was my only concern.
And we can, if I may, we can, our plan is to wrap this up after tonight, putting a little bit more meat on the bone on a couple of these things, getting to the council so that it can be adopted next week. We wanted to give you what the additions were. And then with regards to the evaluation of the manager, I do think that this is intended to sort of tie in with that concept. And it's also, beyond that, it's intended to be a different way of doing business here in the city, where we do have these goals and objectives, or a strategic plan, if you will, not in the most formal sense of the word, but a strategic outline that the council and the administration can use on a regular basis, on a yearly basis, to kind of keep us on track of what our priorities are. Oftentimes, and I guess this is a word of caution to all of us, the administration as well as the council, that in laying this out, we're saying, okay, these are going to be our priorities. Now, there are going to be things that arise during the year that we're going to have to now push on to this. And I don't know what comes immediately to mind, but I think we have to recognize that once we set this roadmap, then we don't want to be in a situation where things get pushed off because something new, the sort of the flavor of the month by the administration or elsewise that gets put on us.
Thank you. Councilor Dakota?
No. No.
I'm not on, okay. Thank you, much better. Through you to the city manager. So one of the questions, and I appreciate you addressed a lot of the questions that I had already, but one of the questions was on this particular topic is there a formal process, or have you considered a formal process for if you or the council needs to change a priority, so that we can do that throughout the term? And then secondly, I just want to make sure that all of the items that we have put in here as goals for the next 18 months have already been approved in the budget, or have been discussed and will be approved in the budget, the coming budget.
Right. I think with regards to the adding or subtracting, I think those would come about as sort of a revisit on a regular basis of how we're doing towards implementing these. I could probably assure you that if something is brought up that's new, that I'll tell you it's not in the priorities, and we have to take that into consideration. But in all seriousness, I think that it is something we're all going to have to be conscious of, and hopefully the council will recognize that. And if a single member of the council brings something up that, that there's some discussion of, well, how does this fit into our goals? But again, we can sort of put that off to the side and look at it as we go through the regular updates. With regards to the budgeting of this, there are elements of this that are, as I said, are tied in. It's a 12 to 18-month plan, if you will, because there are elements in this that we can move forward on immediately, some of which we're already moving on. I mean, the first one that we talked about with better access or improving access to city residents to city jobs, I mean, we've already essentially started working on that. And low cost or no cost items, but there are going to be items in here that do cost money, that do require resources. And if they're not in this year's budget, then we're going to have to look to put them in next year's budget. And that when we do the budget document in May and June, you'll see that tied in, that this will, we're spending X amount of, a classic one that comes immediately to mind is that same goal. One of the ideas that's talked about, I know, was how do we ensure that existing city employees are given an opportunity to advance within the organization? Well, that requires that we make some type of commitment to professional development. Professional development does require an allocation of resources. So we will have to address that in the budget and say, okay, we're going to put X amount of dollars into the budget this year for professional development. And if the city council says, well, we don't want to put that kind of money in there, then obviously that's going to make it difficult for us to achieve that goal. And there may be I'm sure there are other examples of that as well. If we suddenly decide we want to if we want to eliminate, you use the Chapter 90 example. If we want to say that we want more streets being, accepted, and that requires some engineering, requires some allocation of resources to make that possible, then it really makes it very difficult for us to move forward to reduce the number of engineers we have. It may even require that we need to increase the number of engineers we have, and that may have some impact on that goal. But that will all take place in the budget discussions that we have.
All set? Okay. Councilman Donzer.
I understand your concern, and as both have alluded to it, part of this process involves a quarterly review of where we're at, and I would expect that circumstances will come up that you'll say that this one's no longer achievable because, or it's going to take this much longer, and that particular goal or objective or the completion thereof will be extended as needed. And obviously, after we do the budget, that may impact some of these things, and you'll report to us that it's going to take this much longer because we have only half the funding, sort of thing. So I expect that it will evolve as we move forward, understanding that if everything is being done that can be done, then what more can we expect? So long as there's progress made, I think in the long run is what we're really after, to see real progress in a lot of these things. The actual completion date may change, but hopefully if we're all willing to support this and you have the resources you need, then in that case those will be done, and we should be pleased with the outcome. So
exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have just a couple things to say. I want to thank everybody that's participated, residents as well as the council and the manager, Mr. Herbert, and whoever else that behind the scenes helped you put this all together, Mr. Manager. I think that this seems a bit mundane, and folks at home are probably wondering why we spent so much time on it, but it is, I think, setting a new course of business, the way the city does business, and I think it's very important as we here recognize, and I think it does, I think, satisfy the contract, the terms of the contract, and having goals and objectives and doing your review. I think it will make it easier for us to give you a review, but also for you to understand what's expected of you in a more fair manner. This will be a living, breathing document, so to speak, that we will have to change and adapt as funding has changed or changes, hopefully goes up, but we're expecting we may have take some hits, and I think it can be used as a tool when we do go into budget discussions to help us focus on the big picture and get away from who's going to be where, but how we're going to accomplish the key goals and priorities as we get set into our budget discussions and approving a budget. We want to make sure that the budget not only is balanced, but that it fits in with our goals and priorities as as we hopefully pass shortly. And I do want to say thank you for the hard work. I think that this is going to be a big step forward, and we can look for, well, we're going to have a motion on the floor.
Well, I'll make the motion that we recommend that to the council and the manager to present the completed document to the full council for adoption at the next council meeting.
Okay, second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Chair votes yes. And lastly, Mr. Manager, I think that you mentioned that we could probably have some type of review or report on the status of this in June, maybe?
Well, we can probably do some type of, that's what I was thinking is June, and then try to do it quarterly from there on. We're coming up to the budget, so this, in a way, some of this will be reflected when we do the budget discussions. And then what I'd like to see. The other aspect of this, and I'd like to come back to the council with some ideas on this, is how to make this not only a quarterly report, but also include this in some aspects of council meetings. Use this as a guide to working with the council, on a regular basis. Obviously in the private sector world, with a strategic plan, the board of directors will meet quarterly to go over, but that's the only times they meet, and that's sort of when you do that. I'd like to, if we could use this in a way, and this is going to require some work on our part, is to come with ideas of how we can start to use this as a guide for meeting with subcommittees, coming back to council. It's going to evolve over time, but I think there's some opportunities there to, stay focused on the bigger picture of where we're going as a city and as an organization. And but I was thinking June for the first report of where we are with this. We can say what we've done in the budget, where we are with the various aspects of it. It will be the closeout of this fiscal year's budget, which obviously there are some resources that are already in place to accomplish some of these goals. And then try to do it on a regular basis moving forward.
Okay, thank you. And with nothing further, take a motion to adjourn. Second. All those in favor? Aye. Chair votes yes. Thank you.